want to first say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and learn, and to also have an opportunity to share your thoughts and your needs and what your interests are in STEM. In the chairs, there are some information brochures, and there's a handout about C-STEM. I want to start by giving you a little story about my personal journey. So I'm very passionate about this work in STEM education, and in part because I represent the children that I work so hard for daily. I stand before you as someone who beat the odds. Originally from Detroit. Detroit public school system failed me. Failed second grade, made it to fifth grade without knowing my multiplication tables. Shipped to Mississippi, showed up without a parent, to an open concept school in rural Mississippi, where teachers grabbed a hold of me and said, this girl can learn, she just needs someone to invest in her. So I learned to learn in the fifth grade. I became an honor student in the sixth grade. I decided that I was not happy with the stigma of having failed a grade. So in high school, I decided to make up that grade and complete high school in 3 years. And then I set off on a journey to college, right across the street from a high school that I had read about while I was in high school that made Jet magazine. So I'm a living proof that nothing happens by happenstance. Everything in your life happens for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you just don't know how, what, when, or why, where it's going to show up in your life. Well, I ended up attending a university across from this high school, and I ended up getting my first professional job, and I'd never been in an environment where I was the minority. So here I am in the healthcare industry as a black young woman in a white environment. I was not prepared for that. So I jumped out of there and I jumped into a classroom which was going to be temporary. I said, I'll teach for a year. And I began teaching. And at the end of that year, which was a very tough year because all those wonderful things that was promised to me in that interview by that fabulous principal, of all the resources and materials and support that I was going to get, and the bilingual aid, and just all the pie in the sky, I received my key and said, have a fabulous year, you're doing great. And it was an awful experience, and with my little salary of maybe $25,000, I was spending more of it on materials for my students than anything else to just get through the process. Well, I was going to quit the end of that year. I was packing up and I was heading out of there. I have one student, an Hispanic student of all, and I'm in a predominantly black school, so there was probably, we were about 98% African American. Hispanic student came and said, Miss Flores, last name Flowers. Thank you so much. I tried to learn everything you teach me. And I said, wow. He said, I won't be back next year, but I wanted to say thank you. Oh, I start crying. Oh my God, I made a difference in one child out of 160 that I taught. This is great. So I decided I may come back next year. Well, here we are. You know, it's been close to 18 years now that I've been working in education. But in that process, I realized that I couldn't depend on my administrators and my department chair to help me do what I needed to do for my kids. And so I started to go out in the community. I wrote grants. I wasn't trained on any of this. But in writing grants, it afforded me opportunities to go out and experience a world that I was not being exposed to or trained for as a teacher to prepare my children for success. I was really setting them up for failure. I was telling my students that they can go off to Division I universities, major in engineering, and be successful, and that they were the best and the brightest when really they were the bottom of the barrel if they'd gone across the highway to the other school. Our valedictorian would have been number 788 at their school. So it was a reality that I really wasn't ready for. And when I wrote a grant to compete in a national robotics program that many of you may have heard of called First Robotics, we were the only African American team. And when we walked in with our ghetto fabulous robot that we were so proud of, we got our butts whipped and our eyes opened. And our kids were faced with a reality, and so was I as a teacher, that we need to do some things different. And I had a reality that I couldn't share with them, that it was too late for me to really make a difference in their life because they were 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And there was just nothing I can really do. But I knew that for the kids coming in behind them, I had to do something different. And so I happened to start and apply to a doctoral program, and I said, I'm going to research this. And so that's where the STEM research began. And I realized in that process that we can focus on STEM all day, but if our kids cannot read and write, they cannot do math and science. So that's why we have the C. Communication is critical, because what I found is our kids could not articulate what they knew and what they learned. They couldn't do it verbally, they couldn't do it in a written format, and it was crippling them, and it was also inhibiting them from achieving other goals and opportunities in their life, because when they walk into the room, they can't speak the language. So they're intimidated, they're not confident. It shuts them down, they bag away, they settle for less. So I started researching, God, I gotta start earlier. So I went to middle school. Said, oh, I gotta start earlier. Went to elementary school. Oh, I gotta start earlier. So now when I see a pregnant woman, I go to her belly and I said, look.
Do it.
You know, I'm into, you know, the neonatal STEM research now. So the organization evolved to services because I realized we beat up on our teachers a lot. But just like I was in the building wanting to do and try, there were others in buildings just like me. You know, I laughed when the movie came out, Waiting on Superman. We're not waiting on Superman. Superman is already in the building. The teachers are there. They need support. They need money. They need resources. They need training. They need advocacy. They want to do a good job. They're showing up, not for the pay, for the love of those children. They're very precious gems to those teachers. And so our mission with the organization evolved to support services for teachers. We developed pre-K through 12th grade pipelines so that we can keep children connected to STEM learning. We focus on the core content areas. That's English, math, science, social studies. People want to put STEM in science all the time. STEM is a way of life. When you go out here and turn on your car or anything you do, you're not using one skill set. You're using multiple skill sets. It's applying content knowledge to solve a problem, to create a solution, to function, to operate in this world. So that's what we decided to focus on. And we connect with those core content areas as well as art, as well as technology. Because there are kids who love math and science, but they have not encountered a teacher that can help them understand how much they love it. So we'll use art, we'll trick them, whatever we have to do to manipulate them to understanding that they do love math and science and it is a way of life. Because in that space, that's where the opportunities lie. And African Americans are not being trained as early as elementary school. They fall so behind that you can't close the gap as they continue to matriculate through. And then they go to college and they major in social work, psychology and communications and all this other lovely stuff and can't find a job. And so we're in a situation now where we're in crisis because you've got all these people with college degrees and cannot find a job, and they don't understand why the jobs that are available to them is working at Walmart and at the fast food restaurant, but I have a bachelor's degree. And now I've got so much student loan debt that it's more than my salary. How am I to function? So we don't make it a priority for our kids to do well in STEM and to find their space in STEM. Economically, we're not going to change our communities. Economically, we're going to continue to fail as a people. So we're in crisis. This is a sense of urgency. So I share with you an opportunity to join me in this walk. Partner with me in any other STEM program that is happening in your community. There is a place. You can join and sign up today. You can get kids and schools involved today. We can't do the work alone. It's all of you in this audience. It's everyone on the panel, joining an advisory committee, getting on a board, being a champion, helping to grow this work and advocate for this work beyond just your children, but the children that are sitting beside your children. Because if we don't take care of those children, those are going to be the children who are going to do us harm one day. Because there's a disparity right now. And it's only widening. So we have an app. We're on Twitter, Facebook. Our app is C-STEM Challenge. Our programs are openly enrolled now. They operate from the start of the school year to the end of the school year. We have impacted thousands, but just to reach the numbers that we need in these spaces of STEM, we've got to reach billions. The work is very, very important. And we need a lot of champions in the community talking this talk. Now, STEM it's popular now. You know, when I started, it was hard for me. I would talk to people about STEM, and they'd say, I'm not going to work with you. You're doing stem cell research. You're cloning children. They wouldn't work with me. They were just putting up the cross when I walked in the room. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. So, but now everyone's doing STEM because that's where the money is. There's a movement. If you're doing anything in education, you're now plopping STEM on top of it. Now, it may not be quality, it may be quality. It may be science fair, but you're just calling it STEM because you need some funding. The number of nonprofits has increased, I would say 25% between 2001 and 2011. That's over $316 billion in that industry. It is big business now, highly competitive, millions of jobs. So the business sector is tuned in, they're participating, they want to know what the ROI is. I didn't know what ROI was, but they want to know about return on investment. We're talking about human beings. Right. And so it's serious. And you've got this large space of nonprofits and growing interest in STEM, but the money pot really hasn't changed. And so it's highly competitive. And so you have to know and understand what STEM is, what your goals are, what type of systemic change you're trying to bring about. Not kicking a can a few more miles up the road, you know, giving an antidote, but really bringing about systemic, sustainable change. And so that is what CSTEM is doing, and we're advocating, and we're in the communities. We're in 6 states, we're in 2 countries. We will work wherever there are children. We will work with anyone who has a child and is concerned about the future for that child. We are open. So thank you for your time. Look us up on the web. Our information is in the seat. If you have questions at the end, if we're not able to answer those on panel, I'm happy to stay behind and speak with you. You can email me directly at rflowers@cstem.org. It's very, very easy. And I appreciate your attention.